Welcome back! It's fucking failed! So, as I said in the intro, yes, unfortunately, it's failed for the first time in a long time. I've got a lovely little list here of stuff that I've got to work through. Nothing too major. There's a bit of an emissions thing, obviously, because the car's sat for as long. Brake imbalance again, because the car's sat. I'm going to strip the front brakes down, clean them, refit them. Headlights not working. Bit of a bizarre one, but the headlights were working, as you've seen in the last video. If you haven't watched the last video, feel free to go back and watch it now. We'll all wait. Welcome back. So, I've got an issue with one of my headlights not giving out the correct pattern, which is... we'll deal with that later on. But most importantly, and the horrible one that I don't want to deal with, is wheel bearing rough on this side here. I'll be honest, I've known about the wheel bearing. I've had a little whine on it for a couple of years now, and I've kind of turned the radio up and ignored it a bit, but I think now is time to deal with it, because last thing I want is this coming off when we're doing sort of 70, 80 down the motorway. So that's what we're going to be doing tonight. We're going to be ripping the back end apart, getting ready to press the new bearing in, hopefully get that all done, because we need it through the MOT, because we are going to the first car show in 3 weeks?
3 weeks time?
Three weeks time?
July.
Scottish Festival of Motoring?
Yes.
Yes, we will be there. Feel free to call by and say hello and check out the cars. We will be on the Northeast Zafira stand on account of the Boost Bus. So yeah, feel free to call by and see you then. But for now, we'll jump in, we'll start and just get this ripped apart, pull it off and have it in my hands, hopefully in the next, well, for YouTube world, next 30 seconds. Let's get on. The reason it took as much getting off purely was the handbrake cable. I was just being lazy. I should have removed the handbrake cable on the inside, which I've ended up doing, taking the adjustment off before I popped it out of there. And this bolt here on this side, absolute nightmare to get out because it's so tight, because obviously the sill runs there and the chassis runs just up the inside. Now luckily I had the rear axle out a couple of years ago to do the main bushes, the big round ones that are here. And I had the foresight at that point to turn the bolts around, because normally the bolt's in this way, so you physically got to drop the rear axle down to get this bolt out the chassis. So I had the foresight then to turn the bolt around so the nut was on this side rather than the bolt. But even then, even with the nut on this side, getting the bolt out of that side, it's still fouled up against the chassis. But a little bit of clever wiggling and hammer adjustment managed to get the bolt out eventually. So next step we're going to do is we're going to whip the disc off, and we're going to strip all the shoes out the inside of there so we don't do any damage to that. And then we should be close to a point where I've got to take, there's a plastic cover on the back of there, and then I think from memory there's a nut in the back which holds it all together. So I take that out, and then should be at a point where I've got to press the bearing out. We're going to try in our press here, the little baby one, and see how that does. If we can get it out there, fantastic. If not, I'm not going to force it, because obviously I don't want to damage the threads in the back. But when we get on to that point, we'll carry on the video then. I'll stop and talk you through. But for now, what we'll do is we'll time lapse taking this apart, just so obviously you've all done discs and pads before. But yeah, we'll do that. Before we get too far into it, I just wanted you to hear. That's the bearing. Chucky, your farts are stinking, by the way. That's the bearing rumbling. So yeah, so it was a good time to get it done. Right. It's the next day. We managed to get it out. So absolute nightmare. So what I'm going to do, we didn't bother filming it. I'll be honest, we're on a good 3 to 4 hours doing it. The system that we were trying, because I did try with my press, just didn't quite cut the mustard. We used a different setup altogether. So what I'll do is I'll walk you through from the back through to the front, because I know there are some people out there who are interested in it. So once you get the leg off, first thing you've got to do, take the little cap out the back. Now I don't know if these are available or not. I presume then probably not. So just be careful you don't snap these 3 little lugs off, because that's how they press in. Now they press into this, your ABS ring. In case anybody needs to know, you can get them ABS rings separate. They do hammer off and knock back on again. You can replace them. It's not a bad job to do. I have done it before on the other side. However, inside there, what you've got is, you've got a nut, 32 mil nut size. You need 32 mil, and then there's a lock and tab washer sits over the top of it. So what you've got, get my new bearing out. I wish I'd known about this last night, because I thought the lock and washer, that's the new one there, was all part of the nut, but it turns out not. So the lock and washer actually sits over the top of the nut like that, and then there's a couple of little flats in the back of here. I don't know if you can see or not. Let's have a look. There's a little flat at the bottom and a little flat at the top. Just see it there. And a couple of little flats that you knock the tabs over, which stops the nut from spinning. So first thing you want to do is get that out. Take that out. Let's see, I destroyed the old one, but it's not a problem because I've got a new one with it, with the new bearing. So you take that out, unwind that. That'll leave you with this assembly still in the back of there. So what we did originally, we tried to press from here. We didn't hammer on there too hard, because I've got another set there that I've actually mashed them end threads over, and that hub now is knackered. So we didn't want to hammer on there, so we tried to press it out. Wasn't going to press out, so we decided instead to take this off first. So this is just splined onto the back. Once the nut's off, that should pull out. Now what we did for this, we made this little device here. Just literally a solid bit of steel bar. What we did, we bolted this hole and this hole through that hole and this hole, so it was bolted across there. Yeah? Now from underneath, we put in, 2 seconds. We put in a simple, what I would class as a jack-up bolt, so it was this kind of setup here. Like that. See, so the jack-up bolt's underneath there. Then, we held this side with a spanner, turned this side nut to wind it off. As we wound that off, this nut pushed against the underneath of this, which would normally have pushed this off, except this is bolted to this. So what it did was it basically pushed the shaft through, removing this. So much easier. As soon as it broke away, it comes straight out. We did, however, damage one thread and nut trying to get in, because you're in at such an awkward angle, but we got it off. That then left the wheel bearing in the hub, with the hub in the front of it. Now, we did use the press at this point just to press that out through the bearing. I think with a nice copper hammer on the back of there, you could probably, it wasn't hard in, a couple of good whacks on the back of there would probably knock the hub out. Nice easy tip. So that then leaves the wheel bearing in there. So good clean up in there with a wire wheel, because there's a little groove here, little groove right in the tip. Well, I'm going to try and bring you in a bit closer. There's a little groove there. Now in that little groove, I'll put it back. There we go. In that little groove, there's a circlip. Damaged the circlip taking it out because it was well rusted in. However, again, not a problem. you get a new circlip with the new wheel bearing. Once the circlip was out, we just flipped it over on the bench. We put a nice big socket on the back of the bearing, just wheeled on it. This slid out like that. Done. That's the wheel bearing out, completely done. We're halfway through the job now, thank God. Cleaned all this up inside here with a wire wheel. So all we've got to do now is press the bearing in to the hub. So what we'll do is I've kept the old bearing. Voila. I'll use the old bearing to press the new bearing in. So I'm not hammering or damaging the new bearing in any way, shape or form. Once the bearing's in, circlip back in, then I'll go to my press. I'll lie it across the back. No, I'll pop that on the press, sit the hub on top of it, and then I'll put a big socket over the back of the bearing so I don't blow the back of the bearing out. If it makes sense, you'll see when we do the time lapse. I'll try and get some decent videos for you, and then just press it on slowly. Once that's on there, it's just a matter of repeating the process. Pop that on, and once that on, obviously the nut, lock and washer, bend the tabs over, plastic cap, that's the wheel bearing done, just a matter of refitting it. What I'll do is though, when I get a start, I'll try and get some closer pictures of what we're doing and how we're doing it. Should all make sense. If you've got any questions on how to do this, feel free to message us through any of the social media, through the channel, through the page, through this episode, absolutely anywhere, no problem. I'll try and walk you through as best I can. It's the first one of these I've done. I'm sure there'll be people out there who are like, oh, you should have done it this way, it was so much easier. By all means, if you've got an easier way, leave a comment down below, because, you know, always good to help other people out. So sorry it's been a bit long-winded. We'll get this wheel bearing put back in. And that's it. That's all I've got time for today. I didn't bother videoing the refitting the rear hub and arm, which is basically the reverse procedure of what we did, taking it out. The car's back in for test now, touch wood, we'll get the pass, fingers crossed. Yeah, the wheel bearing, as you've seen, was a bit of a nightmare to do, but it's all done now, along with all the other problems and issues that we had with the car. So hopefully, as I say, touch wood, we'll get the pass. So, I hope the video's been helpful. Sorry I've chunted on so long in it, just purely there was a lot of stuff there, and a few people did ask us for a bit more detail in doing the job, because I think they're doing the same. It is a job that I put off for a couple of years because I didn't want to do it, and I'll be quite honest with you, I didn't enjoy doing it either. It was a bit of a horrible job, but it's done. So now I've got to worry about when the other side starts to go, but cross that bridge when we come to it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you next time. Cheers.